Hello and welcome into, well, this isn't really a rapid recap. It's an emergency kind of edition, emergency pod here at Inside Nebraska. I am Greg Smith, senior recruiting analyst here. I'm joined by Steve Marik, our football extraordinaire staff writer. Steve, we were expecting some news around Tony White one way or the other at some point around now, right? You would hope so. Didn't know when, but it's come down. Tony White staying at Nebraska, getting a nice pay bump to $1.6 million. I guess what was your initial reaction when Nebraska dropped that press release on us on Friday morning?
Yeah, you mentioned just kind of waiting for the hammer to come down, and with all this news, I mean, I've been waiting for transfer news, I've been waiting for coach salary news, I've been waiting for
Yeah.
everything, and it's happening right now. The wheels starting to spin right now, so we can finally get into this. But yeah, Tony White staying, that's massive, absolutely massive. When you look at what he had in the opportunities he had in front of him, the head coaching gigs opening up at Syracuse and San Diego State, his two programs that he spent time at. It made you think. And then, the late USC defensive coordinator gig, his name, Tony White's name, starts emerging with that. That makes you think as well. But, at the end of the day, when we see and hear Tony White and Matt Rule talk pretty often during the season, and from everything that I've kind of listened to and read up on, and just kind of my own gut feeling, I never really got the sense that Tony White was really, really close to leaving. I don't know if you feel the same, Greg, but I always thought that Nebraska realized the job that he did defensively coming in, and the way he taught his 3-3-5 scheme so effectively, and he met players halfway, and I think he got them to play fast and physical and violent. And sometimes it hasn't always been like that at Nebraska. So he was such a big part of this season, of the Huskers season, Matt Rule's first season here, that I think Nebraska was going to do what it could to keep him. And, 1.6 million had to be the number. So, I mean, it was congratulations to Tony White and everything.
Oh, yeah.
But now it's on to the next, right? I mean, he's already on the road recruiting. I'm sure he's going to be getting some high fives and stuff, whichever high school he's getting into in Omaha, maybe. But, I think that, his name was everywhere. But in deep down, I thought that, I think he wants to come back and build upon something what he started here in 2023.
So here's the deal, and it's so funny that you said this. As soon as you said that he was in high school recruiting and they were high fives, I get a text from Tyson Terry, who's the Nebraska's 2025 commit, who says, "Oh, it was amazing. I definitely had a relief. Happy for him to be my coach and happy to be playing for him." So yeah, that I mean, and that has been the general consensus around with recruits and their kind of immediate reaction that we've seen kind of on Twitter. And like I've retweeted a couple of them. Caden Vermas was one. We've seen some other guys, a couple of targets as well. Like those guys are super excited. But to get back to kind of the current team real quick, I think that one of the things that's important that you said too is about kind of Tony White's role in rebuilding kind of Nebraska football and the establishing the identity of Nebraska. And that whole, remember what Matt Rule said? It was a long time ago. I forget when it was, if it was Big Ten Media Days or when it was, when he said we have to get Nebraska football to be respected again before it can be feared. Yeah. Tony White was a huge part of that. I think that people now, they definitely respect that defense. Well, we put to the side any feelings about the offense right now. We can do a whole nother video on that. But defensively, people understand what you're getting into when you play against this defense right now. And that's in large part to Tony White and what he's got going on, right? And so that, I think, it's a huge deal to keep continuity and to keep that going. And so it's just a big deal. I also think that his ability, and we were talking about this off pod beforehand, before we started, Tony White's ability to get veterans bought into this new system, and some cases their second or third system since they've been in college. And so guys like, and it's funny, Coach Rule made the comment about Terrence Knighton and, being able to coach guys like Jamari Butler and Nash Hutmacher and Ty Robinson. But I understand the joke he was making, but I think that on the other hand, both Terrence Knighton and Tony White, I've combined them, they got those guys better, right? Like you can't say that every one of those guys got better, right? You can't say that that's not a fact. And then when you look at some of the other veterans that came back, whether it's Luke Reimer, who Matt Rule loved to talk about as a guy who had to buy in, who was an older guy.
Yep.
Isaac Gifford, a lot the same way. I think that Tony White had a lot to do with that. And guys just love playing for him. And it's something, too, that we were able to see a little bit of this in some of those videos that they did, kind of documenting what was happening with the team, right? Think about the Tony White speeches, right? And like just the way that kind of went for it just looked like a guy that guys were ready to run through a wall for. And I'm sure there's a lot of relief on that defensive side of the ball on the team. And like we said, it's definitely pouring in from recruits and kind of the reaction that they have too.
Yeah, absolutely. And so right now, Tony White, he is the highest paid. So if we're talking about the highest paid defensive coaches in the Big Ten, in the conference, Tony White shot up with that 1.6 million. He shot up to number 2 overall. So that's right behind Jim Knowles of Ohio State at 1.96 million. And then it's Tony White at 1.6. And so Tony White is currently making more than Phil Parker at Iowa, which is absolutely crazy to hear. And then at the number 4 spot, it is Maryland's Brian Williams at 1.2 million. And then right below that, Ohio State defensive line coach Larry Johnson getting 1.17 million. So, this is a big commitment from the University of Nebraska, a big commitment of Rule. And, once you set that standard for 2023, where, Tony White walked into a good situation, right? I mean, he did. I mean, he's awesome.
A better situation than the offense did, for sure. And that's how it always gets compared. But yes, that's a fact.
Yes, he walked into talent at all 3 levels, whether you want to believe it or not. Ty Robinson, Nash Hutmacher, Jamari Butler, even though he's having a career year. All 3 of those guys
he had a good year. I feel like we forget about how well Jamari
for
played
a guy
this year.
who led the defense in tackles for loss and sacks. I feel like sometimes he doesn't get talked about. But Jamari Butler, so that was talent on the defensive line. At the second level, you had veteran linebackers that have played in the Big Ten and know how to do it with Luke Reimer. Nick Henrik coming off the ACL injury, but he kind of came back and played. Then in the second level, you have your Isaac Giffords, Marquise Bufords, Quentin Newsomes. So there was talent at all 3 levels, but you have to get that talent out of them and transition it to the field. And I think that's what Tony White is really, really good at, for just showing up from Syracuse one day in November and saying, hey, we're going to run this 3-3-5. And to have the buy-in from guys and to be able to teach it as well as he does. So those guys can play fast, physical, and violent. RDV, baby. That's a talent unto itself. And that's, I think, what that 1.6 million kind of means too, is, you're paying for Tony White's ability to teach and connect with guys and get them to play fast and physical. So yeah, I mean, this is just if you're a recruit, this is a good day for you. If you're a current Husker coming back for 2024, this is a really good day for you.
And that's where I want to go next, is because that's a big deal. That it feels like, I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. I want to take anything away from Tony White. He deserves all of that money.
Yeah.
And then some, honestly. But it's a great calculated play in a way. And I'm sure he was not thinking about it this way. This is just my brain. He gets the bump, but a whole bunch of those dudes are coming back. And so they should be better next year. So then not only do you get those guys that played a lot and they can continue to develop, but then we saw them play so many guys that you expect for more of those guys to also continue to get better. And then we'll see what they can do with the other incoming guys or the guys that they redshirted, because Matt Rule is very quick to remind you that he likes a lot of those guys that are redshirting. And it's funny that we should believe him, because he said that same thing he was saying that same stuff about like the defensive line in the preseason. And we were just kind of like, oh yeah, whatever. And then he turned out to be right. So maybe we just go ahead and believe him on that. But my point is that means that if they're going to be better, he's definitely going to earn that. And he's then we're going to be having this discussion again next year. Just spoiler alert. I don't want to, say like poo-poo on the good news, because it is great news, and people will enjoy this, and I think they'll have another great year on defense. But we'll be talking about Tony White again being interviewed for head coaching jobs next year. because I think the defense will be better next year than it was this year, and they were very good this year. So it's an
It's going to
exciting
be,
time.
yeah. One more thing, and before we get out of here, it's going to be really interesting. The transfer portal wise, everybody's kind of thinking about the offense, but what about the defense? Right? You have so many guys coming back. Right? It's not really top of the priority. It doesn't seem like it, but there are certain positions like let's talk about the Mike, the Will positions, those inside
Yeah, that's
linebackers.
the one. Yeah,
That's the one. You're losing Luke Reimer. You're losing Nick Henrik, who announced that he's retiring from the sport altogether just because of those injuries and just
tough.
all those rehabs. Tough deal for a really good guy in Nick Henrik. But that inside linebacker position is one to watch, and I think it's advantageous for Tony White on the recruiting trail on those with those transfer portal target inside linebackers of showing him, of showing recruits like tape of Javen Wright, tape of Mekhi Gaber, guys who we were an afterthought at Nebraska until Tony White showed up and started playing them at different positions, and they had never even thought that they would be playing in college football. I think that's really going to help Tony White on the recruiting trail, especially in the transfer portal with some perspective inside linebackers.
That's a fantastic point, because I think that they, when we talk about the portal so much, people are always like, it's the wish list of, man, I hope they can grab that guy or this guy. And I always want to say, think about it from the perspective of what Nebraska has to offer that kid. In this particular case, at inside linebacker, you've got to, and I don't mean, I'm not talking about NIL. I'm talking about just like on the field and development. They've got a tremendous pitch. If you can go in and say, listen, like you said, we got this guy and this guy better who we're struggling in their career. We lose all of these snaps at inside linebacker. You know that our defense is the truth. Like, yes, if they want to go get an inside linebacker in the portal, I think they should. Then they have a really compelling pitch. And I would, it's an old school thing, but I really want them to go get a thumper, like a guy that just hit you. It's ironic that Pooh Paul from Arkansas, who was once committed to Nebraska, is in the portal, and he would actually be the perfect guy for that. I don't know what the relationship is between this staff and them, but yeah, that he would be the perfect guy. But that type of guy, I think, is what they need to get. But they should have their pick of the litter at inside linebacker, to be honest.
Yeah. And like, to be honest, like Tony White can go in and see like, hey, if you play linebacker for me, I don't care what you look like, how tall you are, how heavy you are. Just again, show him Javen Wright. Javen Wright came in as a corner, a 6'4" corner. Then he shifted to safety, and then he moved down to nickel linebacker. And now he's playing inside at one of those Mike and Wills. He's rotating in there, playing all season long. So whatever you look like, however tall you are, how big, fast, slow, Tony White can, the good thing about Tony White and his defense is he can use you in different ways. So I think, again, like we talk about on the recruiting trail, both in high school and transfer portal wise, it's going to be really enticing for a transfer linebacker, I believe, just to come in and, again, playing the Big Ten. NFL scouts are going to love that. Drafting Big Ten linebackers seems like a pretty good idea. So
yeah, absolutely. And so, it's a good day for Nebraska football. Get to hang on to Tony White. He gets a nice pay bump to $1.6 million. People are very excited right now. We will have continued coverage of this and more over at InsideNebraska.com. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can get these videos directly into your feed as well. We'll have plenty more content coming as the transfer portal opens up on Monday. We're cruising towards the early signing period. I'll get no sleep. It's fine, but we will catch you guys later.